I think all of us are inside the room. Good morning, everyone from Nairobi. Glad to have you join us today. Welcome to the Yale Bridges webinar on this day of 12th June 2020. My name is Sefa Zokoth. I am the founder and the lead at Cyber in Africa, the voice of Africa cybersecurity. We are a cybersecurity media startup with a mission to bring Africa's cybersecurity to the forefront of the continent and the global scenes. And we do this through media, special industry programs, events, and other things. We do offer, things like marketing, brand development, thought leadership, content creation and delivery, and other media-related services targeted for cybersecurity companies and organizations across Africa. In this webinar, we'll discuss and consider why investing in cybersecurity makes sense, especially now, while you're in the deep of this COVID-19 storm, and even as we are slowly going out of the crisis. With us, we have a panel of 3 gentlemen who will be addressing the above topic and other issues that will spring up during the course of the conversation. And I will be asking them to introduce themselves in a little while. And in the meantime, you can connect with us, me, the speakers, on LinkedIn and on other channels as well, using the links that I'm just about to paste in the chat section. There you go. Please connect with us, follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, check out the website, and reach out on email if you need more information, if you want to talk to us. At the same time, I am sharing a very interesting piece of resource that will be interesting to you to see, and I will be talking something about that a bit later on. So a bit of housekeeping. Please ask your questions or seek clarifications within the chat section. Feel free to share any information or links to knowledge resources within the chat section for everyone to see. In case of any technical hitches on our end during the webinar, please be patient and stick around while we work out on how to solve them, because technical issues happen all the time. So before we get into today's agenda, a bit about our webinar last week. We talked about corporate governance in the age of cyber risk. The guests demystified how corporate governance is positioned now to apply to the cybersecurity function. We talked about how boards and management can now be involved within the cybersecurity programs and the concerns that senior leaders have, their fears. We mentioned also about tools and resources and practices that are important when it comes to governing cyber risk within an enterprise. And you can watch the video on demand for the webinar later on within the link that I have just shared in the chat section. There's a recording there that says corporate governance in the age of cyber risk and the YouTube link. Please go ahead, check out the YouTube video, like, comment, share, and we like your feedback as well within the comment section. All right, so let's do a poll here. Steve, if you could, okay, all right, great. So there's a poll on your screens. Kindly go ahead and give us your responses on what investments in cybersecurity is your company looking to make, in the remainder of the year 2020, if there are actually considerations for investing in cybersecurity. Security awareness training. Are you looking to do security monitoring, risk assessments and audits, security solutions, and other appliances? Okay. What cybersecurity investments is your company looking to making in the remainder of this year? All right. Keep the responses coming. Keep the responses coming. Great, interesting. All right, so we are doing 85% of votes. And the results of the responses is that most of us here are looking to invest in security awareness training. That is at 50%, and then another 33% of us are looking to invest in security monitoring services. Another 33% is looking to invest in risk assessments and audits. So the top three elements are hot on heels in terms of investment, and we'll be talking about these and more within the conversation. All right, thank you, Steve, for the poll. So let's get into today's talk. Gentlemen, please introduce yourself, and as always, I will start with Steve, then Eric, then Scott. Steve?
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to have all of you on this webinar. My name is Steve Mambo, the Chief Operating Officer of Airways, and I'm also a cybersecurity professional. I've been in this space for the last about 12, 13 years. I'm looking forward to sharing as well as learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Eric?
Oh, hi, everyone.
Eric.
Rick. Yeah, you can call me Rick, Kim, Eric, Kimani. Yeah, hello, everyone. Eric here. I'm a cybersecurity practitioner at the moment, but I've worked in other aspects of IT for quite a long time now. But my passion is really cybersecurity, which is what I'm focusing on right now. And I'm just looking forward to sharing what I've learned along the way. And definitely looking forward to sharing and learning from everybody else on this webinar this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And Eric is speaking to us all the way from the UK. So, karibu sana, Eric.
Thank you very much.
He understands Swahili. Sema asante sana.
Asante sana. Why? You know, I'm a linguist, so.
Oh, okay, cool. You're good at languages. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So straight up to our conversation of today. So Steve, do we have Scott in the conversation already?
Unfortunately, Scott is not able to join in, but let's hope he'll be able to join in as we go through the conversation.
All right. Good. So anytime he's room, please just give me a heads up, and we'll chime him in. All right.
Okay.
So, there's a particular question that I wanted to put up to Scott, but I guess I'm gonna address this to you, Steve and Eric. We hear a lot or this statement is very much commonplace. We say cybersecurity is everyone's business, or rather cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, a common responsibility. And this is part of a title of a book that Scott had written. Hope he'll be glad to join us so he can tell us more about that. But I want you guys to talk a bit about why is cybersecurity really a shared goal. I know it's a very easy statement, probably even self-explanatory. But tell us in essence, why is cybersecurity, or why should cybersecurity really be a shared responsibility? And looking at it from an organization context, right? Because when you're managing risk, then risk is everyone's affair. Risk is cuts across all departments, top down, horizontal. So that means cybersecurity is cuts across both. So tell us, why is cybersecurity really important for everyone, especially in organizations and in small organizations or small businesses? Steve?
Thanks a lot, Cephas. I wish Scott would have been here to give us more details on why he chose for that topic for the book, Cybersecurity is Everyone's Business. Solve the security puzzle for your small business and home. But anyway, back to the topic, why is cybersecurity everyone's business? I think in the age that we live in, all of us are interacting with the digital space. We are on our mobile, we are interacting on the web, we are interacting with various systems, both at work as well as at home. And that responsibility of securing and safeguarding our data and information lies on each one of us. Yes, of course, there are people within the organizations whose main role, of course, is to defend the organization in terms of cybersecurity defense. But however, it's the user who uses the systems on a day-to-day basis needs to understand the risks that are involved, because the adversary is also targeting that user through phishing, through social engineering means. So that's why it also becomes cybersecurity is everyone's business. In addition to that, I think long time ago, cybersecurity was considered more of an IT or an IT security topic. But now the conversation has changed, as I'm saying, because all of us are interacting with these systems. All of us interacting with these systems, all of us are prone to cyber risks, and we all need to be informed about this risk and be alert and stay aware of what's happening in the threat landscape, so that we defend ourselves as well as defend the organizations that we work with. Eric, over to you.
Very, yes.
Yeah, just to echo what Steve is saying, it's for too long the corporate security has always been the remit of the IT department, and obviously the IT department has other responsibilities. They are trying to keep to keep the lights on, making sure that the show is going, and now then the security part has also been thrown over to them. So they're trying to juggle between keeping the house secure and supporting everybody else. But that has changed, because every employee, like Steve said, is a potential target. It's not just your servers that are a target. Everyone is a target now. Everyone is on social media. Everyone is. Let's put it this way: the technology is everywhere, and everyone is everywhere as well. So we are accessing technology in ways we never did before. So every employee becomes a target. So it's easier for the bad guys to get to the organization, which means everyone needs to be awake. Everyone needs to be aware. The other point I'd like to bring up is the technology itself isn't a one-stop solution. There's so much technology in the organization. So, and with that, it just opens up more avenues of attack, which means anyone in the organization can actually be breached, regardless. Is it front of house, the back of house, anyone, any one avenue can be used. And also, when you think about it, policies and procedures apply to everyone. So that means cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So, but again, when we view cybersecurity as someone else's problem, which has always been the case, that's where security awareness and training comes in to say, listen, you're as responsible for the organization as just as much as the CEO or the the IT guy is responsible. So that's my take on that. But I think everyone is responsible. Or not everyone is responsible, but everyone has a part to play. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, good way to put it. That everyone has a part to play, but of course we know that you have a specific roles or specific individuals within an organization who are particularly responsible for certain aspects of security and IT. It's interesting you mentioned that technology is everywhere, and at the same time people are everywhere, because people are using this technology in and outside the organization. And then you as well mentioned about the importance, or rather you talked about security awareness training. And I'm looking at that from the angle of culture, security culture. When you talk of security culture, you're talking about values, behaviors, practices, and things like those. And all of these things are targeted towards the people. It's all about the people. It's all about the people, Lately, I've been doing interviews and I've been asking people a question, this specific question, that what is your sixth sense when it comes to security, at a personal or organizational level? And many people have mentioned people as number one priority, as number one consideration when you're coming to security. Even when you're talking technology and other processes, it's all about the people. So cybersecurity is hugely a people issue, but I also know cybersecurity is a risk issue. And cyber incidents rank as the most important business risk globally. This is according to the Allianz Risk Barometer 2020. So how is cybersecurity shaping businesses today and going forward? Steve?
Great. I think, as we said earlier, when you look at businesses today, and more so, I'll give an African perspective, we are digitizing almost all our operations. And even before we go into the African perspective, let's just reconsider where we are today. After the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of organizations had to change their business strategies so that to afloat, as well as also to be able to reach out to their customers. So we've seen a huge jump into the digital bandwagon, so to call it. So that already drives a lot of businesses' clients online, or either online or mobile. Now, that also means that the more we are online, mobile and on the web, the more the risks that we are exposed to. Basically, what we've done, we've extended that threat landscape. Think of it of a brick and mortar store, where somebody has to come in, walk in, buy whatever they want to walk in, pay in cash, walk out. Now all this process is probably happening online. So the process of ordering, the process of making payments, and probably even the delivery, there's some technology being used to ensure that the product that you are to get in the brick and mortar store is delivered to your store. I mean, to deliver to your residence or wherever you want it to be delivered. Now, so one, we are saying that the threat landscape has been extended due to the fact that all of us are now working online. Secondly, cyber threats or other incidents, and the reason why they are ranked as the #1 top priority for organizations in 2020 is that we've seen an increase also in the incidents that are happening globally, not just within the country. So, and when you also think of the impact of these incidents, we're looking at one, the financial loss that is attached to the entire incident. Secondly, you think of the business interruption, which also at some point also connects to the financial loss. Thirdly, you think of also data that is exposed, confidential clients' data that is exposed. When you sum all this, you start now to understand the impact of cyber incidents to an organization today. So today, an organization is not too worried about probably the competitor, or it's less worried about somebody will come in and break in if it's a store, try and break in and take away their stock. You are more worried about that attacker who will bring your business down for the next 2-3 days as they demand for some ransomware payment, or that fraudulent transaction that will be introduced into your core banking system for a financial sector that will lead to a payout that was not authorized. As a business, you are more worried about not being able tomorrow morning to be able to produce more products just because you've been hit by a malware that has disabled your entire production cycle. So those are the key things that are shaping a business, and also how cybersecurity is impacting business today. And going forward, I don't think the situation is going to change. I think even during this pandemic period, we've seen an increase in cyber attacks to organizations. And more so now, we've even gotten to a very interesting environment where majority of staff are also working from home. So now it moves away the threat landscape from the confined areas of the corporate office, where probably we had some controls, to now to homes where, as an organization, we may not have full control, and also be in a position to deploy all the security controls that you have done, like you did it in your four-wall office. So it's going to get more, I don't want to say complicated, I don't think the situation will get better as we move to the future.
Any thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I think Steve, you've covered quite a lot in that front. But yes, cybersecurity is shaping how people do businesses today and going forward. Now, the way I see it is cybersecurity it's a necessary evil that businesses have to deal with. And I've always argued if a business didn't have to deal with cybersecurity and all that, they would be happy not to, because first of all, the whole cybersecurity has always been seen as a cost center as opposed to as a business enabler. They've seen, well, the fact is, this department is really not bringing us any money. Every time they're asking for money, oh, we need new firewalls, we need new stuff, so it's basically it's an expense. It's a business expense, and if they could do without it, they would. But unfortunately, as businesses adopt new technologies and different ways of doing business, with technology at the center, this becomes a necessary evil that they have to deal with, and it's not going anywhere. Just like Steve mentioned, the other thing is it is forcing businesses to change the way they operate, the way they look at risk, and let's be fair. There's a lot more noise going around when you throw in things like regulations, and especially I know, like in Europe, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. You can't just brush things under the carpet. You have to. You have to have a means and ways of how you collect and process people's personal data, and the PII. You can't, back then you'd have people's data not secured in your environment, but now there's a penalty, so that changes how you carry out your transactions as a business, and which means it adds more processes into your businesses. But do these processes necessarily transform to tangible value that you can have? I don't think so. It takes a while to see value in all these new processes that cyber security is bringing with it. We enjoy the technology, we enjoy what it's doing to our business, but then we have to put up with the other side of the story. So that reshapes how we saw our business, and when you go to the board, you're introducing a new risk, because the board, that's all they understand. They understand the profit and loss column. If you're telling them, oh, they just want to know, are we secure? How secure are we, or how unsecure are we? And like I like what Steve said. What's the impact if we got hit by, say, ransomware, or someone took our web server down? That's basically our shop front. What's going to happen to? That's all they care. They don't care about anything else. So it's everybody else further down the line who has to worry about making sure that everything, the show is moving. So yes, cybersecurity is shaping businesses today, and businesses have to evolve the same way that technology is evolving. Unfortunately, not as quick enough. That's the way I see it. And going forward, this is not change. This is not getting better. Unfortunately, it's doom and gloom. But again, there are benefits. So balance is key. That's what I think.
Just to add on to what Eric has just.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh yeah. So I was just saying, just to add on to what Eric was saying, and he's brought in a very interesting angle of regulations and litigation around expectations of businesses by governments and regulators. I think that also places cybersecurity at a rather gives cybersecurity a higher priority to the boards and to senior management of organizations. If an organization has to comply to something for them to do business, that has to be given priority. Otherwise, of course, we know the penalties that come along with them. I think Eric hinted GDPR and, of course, other regulation in different countries. So that by itself is also pushing the importance and giving priority to cybersecurity in a lot of organizations. And with time, we'll start seeing more and more regulations coming in, of course, being pushed by the regulators, by governments. At the end of the day, not only just putting the organization on spot, but also to protect the economy and the citizens of the various nations.
Yeah, can I also add, if you're doing business, you want to make sure that your third parties are actually following, these said regulations. You can't just have your third parties, not being secure with your business, because if they get compromised, chances are you might just get compromised as well, because you are in their value chain. So it's if for everyone, it's important that they actually observe, healthy cybersecurity practices for the sake of their businesses and for the sake of their customers as well. So it's an all-rounder, really. You can't just brush it under the carpet and say, oh yeah, we're going to be a bit blasé, but then that means you can't get any more business from other people, because they're thinking, how secure are you? Can we trust you with our data? And you'll be thinking, yeah, maybe not. It's like, sorry, we can't do business with you. So it has knock-on effect further down the line for literally every business.
Interesting. And Eric, you mentioned one thing that is really important, that cybersecurity is forcing the board and the management to change how they are looking at risk. And I'll consider this specifically to be the technology risks, because there's an increase in technology uptake, particularly in Africa. And the increase in technology uptake, and there's an even more increase in cybersecurity risks. I'd like to mention one thing in line with what you've said, whether customers or clients will trust you because you've actually been hacked, or you have been breached. All right. So I think one big thing that I see is cybersecurity changing businesses, or how businesses happen, is cybersecurity has given an edge to businesses by shifting the competitive advantage aspect of it. The more you're secure, the more competitive you are, because you're having a clientele that is more tech savvy, more tech aware, or more cybersecurity aware. And then that virtually means that they will go for the provider who is more secure, or
looks more secure,
or looks more secure, because perception matters.
It does.
Take for instance, in Africa, we don't have a lot of laws, or virtually zero, not that I know of, where companies are compelled to notify of breaches. Not only to the regulator or the government, but to customers and stakeholders. So in a situation where there's no breach disclosure, you actually don't know if your bank was hacked, or how many times it's been hacked, or how big the impact of the hack is. So in essence, you as a client will really never know if your money is safe or not, or your data is safe or not. You never know if someone is selling your data, in the black market.
Until it's too late.
The whole idea of until it's too late, or until someone leaks the information out, right? So I don't know what you guys think about the competitive advantage aspect, because I find it fascinating. I know I've read a couple articles within the US market, where citizens or users, consumers, they are more keener as to their providers being hacked than actually in Africa. If I know my bank has been hacked, I'll probably stick with that bank. But in the US, probably a consumer will decide to change the bank, or decide to change a provider or a supplier. What do you guys think?
I think it starts off first with the awareness perspective. As you clearly put it, yes, whether today I know some institution where I'm a client, or rather patronize their products or services, I know they are breached. Most probably tomorrow, as a normal customer, I'll also patronize. Due to the fact that there is that lack of awareness in the public. Within the IT security, circles, yes, we are well aware about the risk of what that means. But to the general public, I feel that there's a lot that is wanting. Allow me to give you a simple example, and this was, of course, before we came to this pandemic situation. You've been in a restaurant in Nairobi City, for example. Somebody is working next to you with a laptop, and probably they need maybe to go take a phone outside or use the washroom. So they ask you, just kindly check for me my laptop. They walk away. There's always that trust that provided I come back, I find the laptop, everything is okay. But did this person think that when I'm seated next to them, I could have introduced a USB drive on his machine, installed some keyloggers or installed some malware? That thought is not with that person as they are walking away. For them, their key interest to be the physical device. If the physical device was missing, they'll raise a concern. But if they come back and they find the physical device, I mean, it's still at the same location that they left it, they would have no concern. So I guess it starts off with that public awareness. And I think this is something, and I wish our governments and regulators would really push this communication to the public. That, as we started off the conversation, cybersecurity is everyone's business. It's not the responsibility of the ICT ministry or whoever is responsible for cybersecurity. It's me, you, and every other person in the society. And we need to play that role. And we can only do that once we have an awareness of this risk.
Yeah,
Steve,
sorry, go on.
Yep.
Yes, Eric. Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, I agree with you. It's a sad state of affairs where you can someone can actually just trust you with their laptop in a cafe and say, right, can you watch over my laptop? I just need to pop to the washroom. It's a case where people do not understand the value of their data, and just because my laptop costs, well, maybe £700, it doesn't mean the data that it contains it costs 700 as well. It certainly probably costs a lot more than that. So the total cost, we don't think about that. And you mentioned about awareness. I think for the most part the awareness aspect of it is a top-bottom approach, because people sort of look up to the government or other bodies, leading bodies, to sort of push it back to the public, because most corporate organizations actually adopt these technologies, I would argue, faster than the public. So they will probably be quicker to push it into the public. But if they don't, that means the public remains largely ignorant of the risks. But until it gets way too late, where now every corner you turn is like, oh yeah, I lost my data, then it becomes a public issue. But until then, it will still remain a case of, oh yeah, it's, someone stole my laptop, not a big deal. So hold on, how much data was in there? Was it corporate data? Then you start thinking, oh yeah, so, what could be a competitor, I don't know. But yes, awareness is key. But then again, where does the awareness come from? Someone has to lead the way. Someone has to push it. And whose responsibility is it? Is it the government? Is it corporate? Who is it? Again, it's neither here nor there type of issue. So, as you mentioned about regulation in different places, I know in the UK especially, the GDPR is a big deal. You don't mess with people's data. If you get if you get breached, there's a way to report to it's called the IOC, Information Something Commission. I forgot what it means, but yeah, you need to report to them, and they sort of start an investigation into it. Yeah, not long ago, British Airways got breached, and I think their case is still ongoing. There's another airline called Jet2 also got breached, but they have to inform the customers by law. Otherwise, the fines that come with it are quite hefty. So, and I think in America, it's a state-by-state issue. I know in California, it's a big deal. They're sort of leading the way. They have their own GDPR type regulation for managing people's data, but then they have the regulation when it comes, like national regulation when it comes to banking. I think it's called Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX regulation, and then they have the health, the HIPAA regulations for health, and then obviously the PCI for credit card for card data. So which are national, but some states are now starting to adopt some GDPR type, just state by state. That's what I know.
Well, awareness and regulation is very interesting conversations to always have. The question is, who is responsible for awareness? The government, agencies, companies. Very interesting talk. So let's talk a bit about cybercrime. We know that by 2021, the cost of cybercrime would probably be around 6 trillion, compared to about 3.5 trillion in 2015. We know there are a lot of things that are accelerating the spike of damages, ransomware, increased cybercrime activities, etc. But then how does cybercrime really impact our developing nations? I think this is a conversation that needs to be had more, and we actually need more data when it comes to Africa specifically. Steve, any thoughts on that?
Before we even go there, I think there's someone I saw the other day that they were saying cybercrime may be the third largest economy by 2021. I guess it also ties to the expected damages of 6 trillion. You can try and picture $6 trillion. That would run the Kenyan economy for I don't know how many years. Anyway, back to why we see this as a big challenge and more so in developing nations. One, I think it's driven fast by digitization process from two levels. One, a number of organizations are now seeing the potential and the benefit of digitizing, of course, to reach more customers, to be able to offer efficient services, and to be able to deliver better offering and services to their customers, which is good. Secondly, if you look at developing nations, and I want to focus more on Africa, you realize that 60% of the African population is made of young people, the millennials, so to speak. These are guys who want to receive everything on their mobile, when they're moving, when they're chatting, they want to be able to bank on their devices. If it's insurance, they don't have the time to go queue somewhere to get an insurance policy. They want everything on mobile. So as an organization, again, because this is your target market, you have to offer that service on that space. But now, as you do so, and as you mentioned earlier, there is the bit of the risk that needs to be addressed. When we look at it from a business perspective, there's always that urgency to hit the market, because if I don't hit the market, my competitor will come in and take up that space. There's always that urgency to be the first in the market. And as organizations are running to be the first in the market, they end up taking security as a second consideration. So let's first get into the market, then we'll address the security issues, if at all we think they are there. So that means that we go to the market with the unsecure products, of course, for us to meet our business targets. But we go to the market with an unsecure application, for example, that will become compromised at some point, and the losses that we'll actually incur will be much more, rather than if we had focused on securing the product before we push it to the market. That's one level. Secondly, and now this looking towards, I'll bring it back home to Kenya. Of late, if you've been, following up in the media, you'll take a note that there has been a lot of, I'll call them cyber fraud related incidents. And in Kenya, you'll realize that there's a very thin line between corruption and cybercrime. They work together. So we want to blame corruption, or rather we want to blame corruption to cybercrime. I think those who are aware about what's happening in the market, you've seen scenarios where even governments are trying to argue out that because we lost some money somewhere, we want to associate it with cybercrime because that the public is not well informed about, this kind of incident. And also, this also happens in corporates. It's not just the government at all. So there's a very thin line. We want to blame corruption on cybercrime because that we know once we blame it there, probably people will not ask very many questions. It looks a bit complex. It may take time for us to fully investigate the matter, and probably we'll never close the case. So one way or the other, we'll end up forgetting about that kind of matter. And this is not just in Kenya. I think I've also seen in a few other countries where you notice that corruption cases have a very inclination towards cyber crime or cyber fraud. So there's a very close integration between the two. So when you're saying these costs are going to increase and probably then even surpass that $6 trillion mark. I foresee that even going beyond that. And anyway, you remember this research was done, I think, sometime 2 years ago. 2021 is in the next 6 months. I foresee that even shooting higher than the mark that they predicted. Back to you,
Steve, you
Cephas.
mentioned something really interesting. Yes, you have mentioned a very interesting point there about blaming corruption on cybercrime, and it just got me thinking. You could be insinuating that we're actually having state actors within government who are involved in fraud, and they're putting that as a cybercrime situation so that they can as well very well cover up. And it just got me thinking about the nation state actors, either internally within a country or externally inbound. Anyway, we'll come to that conversation now. So Eric, from your viewpoint in the UK, what do you see as an impact of cybercrime with regards to the economy? You can give a sample within the UK.
I mean, cybercrime, crime doesn't pay, but cybercrime does seem to pay for the bad guys. So, and it has an impact. Say, for instance, I have my own little, company, maybe 30 to 50 employees, and obviously, we're plodding along, and then we are breached. And so guess what happens to this company? We spend so much time trying to recover, and sometimes we don't. So we take a massive hit, which means at one point down the line, I have to let some of my people go. I have to spend more time cleaning up when I could have spent more time innovating and changing and trying to reach the wider market. So the time I'm losing trying to clean up is impacting my business and the wider economy. And on a global scale, when big organizations, like say banks, telcos, and major service providers get hit by cyber attacks, ransomware type stuff, it's the disruption that causes. It's unbelievable. A good example, when WannaCry ransomware hit back in 2017. That did have an impact, and particularly on the NHS, which is the UK's National Health Service, and the National Health Service is everywhere, and they in particular were affected in a massive way, because that meant some of their systems weren't working. So some procedures had to be cancelled, which means delaying everybody else, which means if I had an urgent issue, I couldn't be attended to. So it has an impact, and sometimes, what do we know? It probably had, in that case, would impact people's lives. So the impact is massive. When another example, Maersk, the shipping, one of the world's largest shipping companies, got hit some years back. Is it 2018? It literally stopped their entire business. They had to go back to manual pen and paper to get their tasks done. And this is a global company. So when an entire company, international company like Maersk, gets compromised, none of them can access can log onto the systems because the Active Directory server has been hit. Guess what? That stops the show, not just for them, but for their users, for their customers everywhere in the whole world. So the impact is loss of income. Everybody now looks at you differently as a provider. You think, oh yeah, well, they're not very secure. They got hacked. Another big player that got hacked, Equifax. They essentially take off everybody's credit information, and then they get hacked. And you think, so if you get hacked, who can I trust with my information? So it does have an impact on the business. It means if you get breached, you lose customers, you lose space. How long does it take to get back on track? It's going to take a while, and you always remembered as a company that got breached. People will just, oh yeah, they're the ones that got breached. So, but is that the kind of business you want? I don't think so. But there is an impact. There is an impact definitely from a global point, and even just from a local standpoint in regards to the economy. So, and for developing nations, I think the impact might be greater. It's just that it's probably not reported. And like Steve says, it's attributed to, oh, well, it was a cybercrime, but let's be honest, this is corruption masked as a cybercrime. So they're just using cybercrime as a conduit to do what they need to do. Well, nothing new, really. Corruption in whatever flavor it comes in, vanilla or strawberry, is still corruption. We just keep changing the flavors. But again, that's a whole other story for a different day. But yeah, the impact is massive. It impacts lives, it impacts businesses, it impacts the economy. Because for a big provider, let's say Safaricom, largest telco, it gets compromised. All the services stop. It means you can't send me money. I can't send you money. We can't do any transactions. Everything stops. And as we know, time is money. So, and unfortunately, because we're all doing businesses using technology, I think that's our Achilles heel when it comes to businesses. But it's the new world we're living in. I'd rather this than pen and paper.
Very true, Eric, what you're saying. And just to add on something regarding the developing nations. When you think of cybersecurity, it's actually a society issue. It's not just a technology issue. Think of it this way.
Sure.
We look at our institutions of higher learning. We are churning thousands and thousands of graduates who have IT and probably cybersecurity skills. And when they come to the market, there are no jobs. These guys need to eat. They need to, meet their daily needs. Yet they have a skill. And yet they also realize that we have an open avenue where organizations are not willing to invest enough in securing their resources. And resources here is both funds as well as data. Why don't I use my skill also to get a few shillings that will enable me move, from point A to B? So a lot of skill out there is left in the wrong hands. That also leads to the increase in cybercrime within the country. We are very aware of some incidents where some huge organizations, corporates, that are being compromised by a second year or third year student. You wonder, this was someone with a skill, yes. Probably they know that by the time, even when I'm leaving this institution, there are no jobs available. So I just need to look for a job for myself. And as Eric said, cybercrime does pay. So it's a quick win for them. So that's also something else that is also driving the high number of incidents, as well as also the same to the cost of cybercrime in the country.
It's interesting, Steve. You mentioned university students ending up applying their skills in all the wrong places. Now, what I see here in Europe, it's a lot of bored high school students actually get up to mischief. A good example, a big, a few 4 or 5 years ago, a big telco, a big player in the telco business got hacked by a 17-year-old. I mean, this guy's just coming out of high school, is probably still in college. Now, the question though is, what is society? And like you say, it's a society issue. It's a safety problem. What are we not doing right to these young people to say, listen, you need to direct your skills to the right place? Are we providing them a platform to showcase their skills? Are we even noticing that there's a skill here that we could fast track to support cybersecurity? Or do we think, oh yeah, just leave them alone? And then when they turn around and hack our entire estate, what do we say? Oh, we blame it back on them. I mean, no excuse for crime, regardless of age. But young people are a lot more vulnerable. And here I am. I'm a second year, first year student. I can see my classmates. They're doing well. They're driving nice cars. They're living their life. You're thinking, hold on, how can they afford this? Guess what? They're like, oh yeah, we've got a few things we do during our spare time. Do you want to join in? And guess what? The proceeds of crime, they're very enticing. And sooner or later, you're like, yeah, they just jump on the bandwagon. But yes, it is a society problem. But Steve, I question, what are we teaching? What are we teaching the students at these institutions? Are we teaching them market relevant skills? Are we teaching them the good old textbook stuff that has no relevance in the market? That's one other thing. And if industry perceives this to be a massive problem that will come to bite them, what are they doing? Are they partnering with these universities to say, listen, we'll partner with you and we'll help you, even as you deliver your curriculum to actually develop market relevant material? I don't know. It's a society issue.
Absolutely. And I know Steve is working with the university now that you've talked about that, running masters. Steve, I think that's in play as well. So interesting facts there. With increase in cybercrime, there's definitely a greater demand for investment in cybersecurity. So the question is, how much cybersecurity is enough? Are organizations investing enough in cybersecurity? Does a huge budget necessarily translate to better security? Steve?
Well, there is always the assumption that the more you buy or the more you invest, the better security you get. Not necessarily. I think what I've observed, at least in the market, is that a lot of organizations are not giving cybersecurity the priority it deserves. That also means that in terms of also budgeting, it's you find the cybersecurity function is one, understaffed. Secondly, is not even allocated enough budget to be able to address the business risks. And thirdly, even those I've seen even scenarios where a budget that was initially allocated for cybersecurity, halfway in the year, it's moved to another department, let's say marketing for argument purposes. Because the business is of the idea and of the feel that we are better off spending more pushing, for our brand, for our marketing, or for our sales, rather than invest in security. And one thing that they keep forgetting is that the cost of recovery will definitely be more than the cost of prevention. So back to your question, are organizations investing enough in cybersecurity? I would say not really. More needs to be done. And that goes back to our conversation of awareness. Does the person who's approving this budget understand what cybersecurity and how cybersecurity, or rather the role of cybersecurity in the business and more so in the...
Steve, we can't hear you.
Steve, we've lost you.
Hello? Hello?
Can hear you.
Hello? You can hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened. So I was saying, yes, the people who are responsible for even approving this budget, are they aware and alert on the impact of cybersecurity to the business? Because that's what will drive somebody from deciding that this budget that we had allocated to buy this network access control solution should go to maybe marketing or some other function. And there's also the conversation that cybersecurity is expensive. Well, I always ask, compared to what? Have you seen the risk of exposure of the business? Have you done an assessment to understand if today you are to be breached, what kind of financial loss, or rather what's the financial implications it would have to the business? Then after that, I think it's now you can look at it and say, budget that you're putting across for cybersecurity may be too much, or maybe we need to add, allocate more budget to it. And goes back again into prioritization. We are not saying that once you have $1 million in your budget, all your security challenges are resolved. Not necessarily. It's a matter of prioritizing. What needs to be prioritized and implemented as soon as possible, while we wait for other actions to take place so that we can implement other controls, for example. So there's no time we can say that you have enough security. I think that is, we always say security is an illusion. Hello?
I totally agree.
Security is an illusion. So there's no point you can say that we're 100% secure. That would be lying to yourself. It's a matter of trying to keep up with the adversary and ensure that your crown jewels are the most important thing, that they're well secured.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Steve is saying.
Okay.
The budget does not necessarily translate to security. You could have a very small budget and be secure enough, or you could have a massive budget and not be secure enough. But then, how secure is secure? You just need to be secure enough to protect your business. And I think, regardless of which angle we look at it, it's all about risk management. How do you manage the risk? What is the risk? And what is the impact? And question, first of all, is, are we even vulnerable to whatever threats that are out there? What are we vulnerable to? And you will say, well, we're worried about, certain vulnerability, but you're thinking, hold on, we don't even have a web front. Why are we worried about that? So I think businesses need to understand their risks, their actual risks, as opposed to their imagined risks, and then tackle those from that angle, and then decide how much money they want to put into it. Again, like Steve said, your crown jewels. What would you rather? Would the company just rather throw in all the money into the organization, buy all this blinky stuff, when then they realize, hold on, we bought all these solutions. Well, why are we still getting breached? Again, is it about budget, or is it about risks? So it's I believe understanding the risks and then applying the proper mitigation, and with the mitigation, that's where your budgets come into play. But then again, when you allocate a certain amount, it doesn't get used up to, say, a certain quarter. The management says, hold on, we're running low on sales and marketing budget. Let's pinch from your budget. Let's put it this way. And then when you decide, actually, we could have installed a new, firewall, or new, we could have, offered new training for our employees. There's no money. It's gone. We roll over to the second year, and that becomes a culture of how you do things in the organization. At the end of the day, you're so far behind, you're thinking, now this is going to get difficult. This is going to be expensive. Yes, it's going to be expensive because you didn't do it right from the beginning. So just to narrow it down, it's all about risk management. It's how you manage that risk and apportion the correct budget to it. That's my take on that.
That's a really good angle you've taken, Eric. It's about risk management, because you have to look at money to the management aspect of the risk. So, what tools or models or frameworks could you advise executives to use, to allocate appropriate budget for cybersecurity? Because again, Steve, you had mentioned prioritization. How do I know what to prioritize? What do I know where to put much money, less money, and things like those? Eric?
I think when it comes to tooling and models, you need to I couldn't pinpoint one particular model and say, oh, this model works better. You could end up having a hybrid of different models. You say, right, maybe NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, they say this would be a good model to follow. Try and follow this. Another organization comes up, maybe SANS says, or follow this. You need to tailor everything to your business, because there's no one size fits all. You understand, but again, if you're an executive who understands your business very well, you will use the best fit for your business. Say you're a business that's involved in energy, the energy business. You want everything to fit that business. There are aspects of that you get from these risk management models that will probably not work for you, but you can get bits and pieces that actually aspects of all these models that actually address your risk. Again, risk. How do we manage it? How do we reduce the impact? And if things go wrong, how do we come out of it? Because it's a cycle. Wash, rinse, repeat. We do our audit. We audit ourselves and say, yeah, this needs to be mitigated. What are we doing with this risk? This needs to be handled. This needs to be addressed immediately. This can be, we can live with it, or hold on. And again, the risk surface keeps changing. What we could say, oh, we were pretty secure last year, but then there's new developments in cyberspace, meaning that you're no longer secure. So it's a wash, rinse, repeat cycle, and you have to maintain it. So as an executive, you also need to be aware. You can't always be looking at the profit and loss column and not be aware of what's happened to the businesses. The same way you would look at your business strategy of going forward. You need to be relevant. That is the same way you need to be looking at your cybersecurity risk, appropriate in the right budgets, and with that, the right tools, so to speak.
Very true, Eric. And I'll give a classic example. If today I was to walk into a store to buy a suit, I'll want to leave the store with a suit that fits me. Same case to cybersecurity. So as an organization, you have to understand what's the right fit for the organization. And the cybersecurity strategy must fit in within your business risk appetite, within your business strategy, and as well as also in terms of your capabilities. You may want to go to the moon, but you don't have the resources to do that. So it has to be a fit within your organization, because that is what will start guiding you in terms of understanding what risk are you willing to accept, what risk are you willing to transfer, what risk are you willing to mitigate, and what other risk are you willing to do away with. So it starts first with understanding of how cybersecurity plays a role within the business. Once that is clear, the rest, I think, is straightforward. Unfortunately, what happens in the market is that a lot of organizations do a lot of ad hoc investment. Just because company X in our industry has bought X solution, we also need to buy that solution. Not knowing that the other business probably did some risk assessment for them to come to the conclusion that that solution probably fits in within their strategy. Well, on the other side, you just decided to pick up some solution or a framework just because somebody else has done it. It may not really work for you because your appetite and the other business appetite could be a bit different. So it's a matter of first ensuring everything is a fit to your business.
Good point. If I can build on your analogy of the suit,
Yep.
If you go to a shop, you want to buy a suit that fits you. You can actually find a suit that fits you straight off the shelf. But then that shop could also be offering tailor suits. You go in there, they take your measurements, they ensure they cut the pieces of cloth, make it straight up for you, exactly as you want it and exactly as it fits you. So I think definitely you'll want a suit that fits you, but don't want a suit that is that can fit everyone else. You want a suit that will particularly fit you, and that brings takes us back to the issue of prioritization. Have you done risk assessment? Do you know your risk areas? What solutions fit those risk areas? Again, one major aspect of investment in any organization, and potentially the big organization, would be insurance. Taking cyber insurance covers. And Steve, you are a practitioner in this area. Should the focus be on the technological controls, or transfer of risk through insurance, especially for SMEs?
I think I know we held a similar conversation in the last, I think, 2 weeks in the webinar with the cyber insurance folks. And I think the point is that just because you've got a cyber insurance cover, that does not mean that your risks are gone. It's just one of the many mechanisms available in risk management. So before you even think of cyber insurance, have you done your homework right? How is your cyber hygiene? Have you addressed what I'll call, or rather, have you met the bare minimums before you even consider transferring the risk to a cyber insurance? Ideally, you should address majority of the risk, and what should be actually be transferred to the insurer would be what I'll call the residual risk. That we put in enough defense controls in our environment, and even in an SME environment. And however, there is this other residual risk that I'm not willing, I don't have the capacity to take up. So that's why I'm opting to transfer that to the insurer, because that's really way outside my control and my limit. That's when you consider cyber insurance. But also, even by the time you're going to the insurer to seek the policy, they also want to understand your environment. So if you've done a good job in terms of your cyber hygiene, probably your premium could even be lower, because they'll be saying, hey, this is not a bad risk for us to take as a business. So the premium that we issue is based on, other factors that we see could be a potential risk to the business. However, if you've not even done the bare minimums and you're going to the insurer, at the end of the day, they're also in business. So they see you as a bad risk. So your premium will definitely be high, because they expect to receive quite a number of claims, from the business, just by looking at how your cybersecurity posture and hygiene is set up.
Good thought there. Let's extend the investment conversation beyond the organization and considering the market, the cybersecurity market, particularly in Africa. I think these are conversations that we've been talking about, Steve, and some people have been talking about this a lot. And we definitely know that Africa is sort of the new frontier for many things, and I think including even cybersecurity, with the huge tech-savvy population of millennials, increased digitization from government to the private sector, and many other systemic of societal transformations. We see a lot of foreign entities coming around and setting up shop, offering cybersecurity solutions, whether through local offices, subsidiaries, buyouts, partners, etc. So, Steve, what do you think about the market motion or the market movement when it comes to cybersecurity investment?
I think you've well put it out that, everyone is looking at Africa as the new frontier, and everyone seems to see big opportunities. It's always very interesting when you talk to people outside and they're telling you about these big opportunities. You're looking around, you're wondering, okay, how comes I am not seeing these things that these people are talking about? But however, on a serious note, on a serious note, I think, as you said, if you look at when Africa started digitization, probably a few years back. Secondly, if you look at mobile penetration and internet penetration, if you compare to the rest of the world, we seem to have been the people who jumped quite a number of steps. So as there were no mobiles, mobile came in, we jumped with mobile, and beyond mobile, we even went further now into applications. So look at how M-Pesa has transformed not only Kenya, but now the entire globe. Earlier on, before we started off the webinar, we were just discussing about, how M-Pesa is basically revolutionized the financial sector, not only just in Kenya, but globally. So you have to look at all these things for you to see that the investors who are looking or, global players who are looking to venture into the African market, they are seeing that this is the right market with great potential from in terms of consumption also. That's also a very important element to consider, that you notice that if you look at the demographics of Africa, again, as you clearly put it, they are more younger people, so they have consuming power. So the same thing goes back to, with their consuming power, they demand services digitally, so organizations are also forced also to offer whatever they have to offer digitally. Let's also go to another important element of the startup culture. We are no longer talking of Silicon Valley. We are now talking of hubs all over Africa. I think majority of the African countries, you'll definitely go find a startup hub that is actually doing some amazing work. So we're also developing a lot of solutions, technology-related solutions, to make our life much easier. And with that, that also brings also the perspective of risk. In fact, technology and cybersecurity go together. The more we become tech savvy, the more we become more exposed to cyber risks. So those two also are also driving the conversation on why Africa is the next potential. Another interesting thing is that in terms of the skills, and this is from this perspective, a lot of young people who are educated, and some are even willing to who have gone through what I'll call missing the word. But anyway, what I want to bring out is that a lot of young people who have the urge and need to learn new, new technologies, new ways of doing things. So we have good talent that needs to provide the same service to the market. We spoke earlier about the conversation of churning a lot of graduates with skills. So there's somebody who's looking at it from this perspective that, hey, this is a continent that has a lot of talent. I can go tap also into the talent. There are international security operations center that are looking into Africa to provide the same service to their global customers. So it's not just the market alone, there's the skill. And I think Africa is really the next future in terms of cybersecurity. Over to you, Cephas.
Let's flip sides and go to Eric, because he's out there. He he hears what other folks are saying. So Eric, I don't know if you have some insights or some reporting to do to us. Tell us, how are guys seeing Africa from outside? Because we hear opportunities, but where are they on the ground?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting you say that, because I'm one of those people who sees opportunities. I see them all everywhere. A good example. Last time I was in Kenya. I walked into a bank. I was trying to open an account. Walked to a bank. The guy, ushers me into his office. Say, "Yeah, have a seat." Blah blah blah. And now, what I have is the guy across on the other side of the desk, and he's got his workstation. And guess what's facing me? He's got his entire desktop with open ports everywhere facing me, and I'm thinking, well, there you go. There's the open door. If I was the bad guy and I had a few rubber duckies or USB sticks that were loaded with malware, I could just plug them in there. And the guy walks out of the office, goes away for I don't know however long, comes back, and I'm still waiting, and I'm thinking, this is an opportunity right here. So if I was to sell this as a physical pen tester to a company, and I say if, because I'm not sure they're going to buy it. If I was to sell this opportunity, say, listen, this is how you would protect your company. Start, doing, start having some basic hygiene practices. So you see these opportunities. And another example is I walk into a hotel and I'm stood there at the desk and I'm talking to the front desk guy, and there's a printer on the desk, And guess what's on the printer? A label with the IP address of the printer and the network name of the printer, i.e. 10 dot blah blah blah, and I'm thinking, oh, front office, and I'm thinking, you're just giving these keys away today, aren't you? You know, for a bad guy, he didn't even have to work hard. You can see it right there. You've given me an IP, you've given me a name. If I'm the bad guy, I'll just be sat at the lobby and I'll be pillaging your whole network, planting whatever it is I want to do and stealing your data. So, and that's just me seeing an opportunity. Now, I'll give you a good example. Microsoft launched $100 million funds for an Africa Development Center in Kenya and Nigeria. That tells you something. If Microsoft can see an opportunity and they're willing to put down that kind of money, you know, someone needs to wake up and thinking, if the big players can see, you know, then there has to be something. Microsoft just doesn't show up on your door and, you know, and puts down $100 million to open a development center. They're not doing this for charity. There is something there. And that's what I'm saying. You know, from an outsider, you can see the opportunities. Whether or not these opportunities can actually come to fruition on the ground is a whole other story. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine who's based in Botswana, and I was telling him, so how do you guys, what kind of things do you do, you know, in terms of ensuring that your estate is secure? It's like, oh yeah, you know, in the evening, we just let the cleaner in, just, you know, give them the key to the offices and then let them clean. And then when they finish, they drop off the keys to someone else. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. If I was a bad guy, I'll just show up as a cleaner. And guess what? Plant malware all over the place and set up my little network. And I could just steal your data and your customer data. So but then again, how as an investor, you know, how do I come in and sell that to a company and say, listen, you're just exposing yourself. It's only a question of time and things will get out of hand. Again, that's me looking at it from an outside view. Whether that would convert to actual opportunities or not is a whole other story, because you know, there are other factors to consider. But I have no doubt that there are opportunities in Africa. It's a question of time, and maybe some of the big players are already there. I'm sure that there's quite a good number of you know, the likes of Big IT, Oracle, can't remember who else, but there's a lot of big players setting themselves up, and guess what? By the time everybody else wakes up, they have you know, a big chunk of the market. Sure, but Africa has massive potential to cover its own path in the security space to grow it, because think about it, there's already a blueprint from other parts of the world. So why does Africa need to reinvent the wheel in how it does? And like Steve said, you know, like in Kenya, we jumped so many hoops in technology. Mobile money, we're the market leaders in mobile money. Why do we need to? We don't have to start from scratch. And guess what? We've got the fiber optic cables coming right through to Kenya from the Middle East. That tells you something, that these services at some point are going to be a lot cheaper. So connectivity gets cheaper, it's quicker, it's accessible. There are a lot of opportunities. I think it's just a question of time. I think it's a question of time from the way I see it.
A question of time, and whether these opportunities can actually translate into actual business.
Yeah.
So interesting. So as we wrap this up, your parting shot, Steve. Why investing in cybersecurity makes sense right now? Your parting shot.
I think there has not been a better time to invest in cybersecurity than now, and it's not a conversation that, as an organization, you can avoid. I look at it from this angle. We've just gotten into a new norm. Those people keep talking of we need to go back to the old ways. That's not going to happen. prepare for the new norm. And with the new norm, we'll see more remote working. We'll see more, people working from home or working from anywhere. That means also from an organization perspective, the security landscape or threat landscape is also extended. So more investment in terms of how do you secure that remote worker who's working from their home? How do they connect back to the corporate environment? And also to the clients. Now, majority of businesses are offering, majority of services through some digital platform. How secure is that platform? What investments are you putting in place to give trust to the customer? That today, if I'm ordering something on that mobile app, I'm confident that information that I'm sharing with the business is secured, is not also abused, and also not sold to other third parties. So cybersecurity will continue being a critical and an important factor for any business. And this is not just for corporates. Same case comes to SMEs. SMEs want to partner with corporates or want to provide a service to the corporate. We say very well that the corporate will also be looking at this SME. Are you going to introduce risk to my business? Or have you also secured your environment in such a way, even if we are partnering, we are not exposing my clients and also the SME's clients. So going forward, security investments must always be considered. This is the new norm, and the new norm, cybersecurity is part and parcel of the new norm.
Good point, Steve. Let me drop these in here. A while ago, I was speaking to a guy in the US who is interested in cybersecurity opportunities in Africa. So he runs a cybersecurity consulting firm, and he wants to have a local presence, across Africa. And he was asking me if there are opportunities for cybersecurity subcontracted work, where a company like Deloitte takes a project and contracts it to Yelbridges and other smaller cybersecurity firms. Does that happen around, Steve?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I think that's the other angle I've seen of recent, that global players don't want to come in and set up shop. They want to work with a partner who, of course, probably have a better understanding of the market. And also, there's also the culture issue, who will also have a better feel and understanding, with the potential clients. So then the global player probably comes in to provide maybe the technology, sometimes the know-how, but they work with a local player who's well known in that space.
All right. Eric, your parting shot?
My parting shot is secure your business, putting the money into your business sooner rather than later, because once you get to a point where you feel a lot more secure, that means you free up time to be more innovative, to push the product or service for which you actually set up your business for. Because if you didn't set up your business to be supplying cybersecurity services, you probably set up your business to be supplying, I don't know, you sell soap or detergent. You need to spend more time doing that and not worrying about cybersecurity. So if you do it right, if you put in the money and sorry, I can't even get my words out. You reduce the risk to an acceptable level. It means your people can actually get busy doing what you pay them to do, which is to innovate and improve your business and grow your business. So any time is a good time to invest in your cybersecurity, but you just have to be smart on how you do it. You have to buy. It's a business decision at the end of the day. And unfortunately, most cybersecurity practitioners think everything is about them. So they will come rush you to the boss, say, we want money for this, that, and other, and maybe the business is probably not even doing well. But hey, it's all about the business at the end of the day, not two ways to it. So that's how I see it. But there are opportunities and there are opportunities. That's all I can say.
So I normally say that cybercrime has no season. So that means cybersecurity really is always in season, because cybercrime is always around. So cybersecurity should always be allowed. And anytime is a good time to invest in cybersecurity. What a powerful way to end this session. Thank you, Eric. As we wrap up, as you can see on your screen, I'd like to introduce everyone in the chat to the QuarterCon conference. This is Cyber in Africa hosting an organized conference happening on 3rd July. It's a one-day conference, pretty comprehensive, 5 tracks, 10 plus speakers. The target here is senior level and leadership security folks, but everyone is welcomed. We'll be having talks, interviews, panels, a couple of special releases and launches. So please go ahead to www.quotacon.com, sign up. We have limited spots, very limited spots. So sign up today, sign up now, and spread the word as well. Okay, so again, all right. So I have dropped some links within the chat section. Please go ahead and take a look at them. Would like your feedback through email, through phone call, whatever it is. Join the newsletter as well that I've shared on the chat section. We'll be glad to be sharing a lot of info on cybersecurity stuff with you on email. Okay, so thank you, Steve and Eric, for being very fluent, very patient with us. Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you for making time. Thank you to our attendees for sticking around with us for the last hour or so. It's always a pleasure to host you, and we'll be having this webinar on demand at the Yale Bridges YouTube channel, which the link is in the chat section earlier on, shared earlier on in the conversation. Please go visit the YouTube channel, like, comment, share the links. Would like to hear your feedback as well. If you need access to the previous webinars, the last 4, 5, or 6 week webinars, please go ahead to the channel. All of them are there. Okay, thank you to the host, Steve and Lisa, for putting this together. Thank you to Mike as well. He's a member of the team in the conversation. And this is a wrap for everyone. So have a lovely weekend. Let's stay safe, let's stay healthy, and ciao, everyone.